I think if you look at the history of the Western countries which have successfully finished their industrialization or industrial revolution, there's a common pattern. I think there are at least 3 stages in terms of industrialization. The first stage, which is experienced by UK, by France, by Germany, by Japan, by the US, also by China, is what I call proto-industrialization, which is a primitive stage to pave the way to detonate the so-called industrial revolution itself. And this first stage looks very primitive, but is very crucial. And many nations, they are too ambitious. They try to skip this stage and jump directly into manufacturing or modern manufacturing system. I think that's normally lead to failure. And if this stage can be accomplished successfully, then you will be able to start the second stage, which is the first industrial revolution. By first industrial revolution, I mean industrialization process featuring mass production of light industrial goods, mostly directly for consumers, such as textiles, furniture, shoes. And if this stage is accomplished successfully, then a nation can start the second industrial revolution, which I also call it heavy industrial revolution. So this stage features mass production of heavy industrial goods, including steel, concrete, coal, and machines, machine tools. Lots of things can be mass produced, even like highways, railroad, engines, electricity, power plants. So once a nation finish its heavy industrial revolution, then a nation is ready to enter the so-called welfare state. In a welfare state, the productivity of the nation is so high such that it can afford giving workers lots of welfare benefits, including social safety nets, free education, free health care, and also political benefit. Welfare state is the last stage. If they fail to follow that pattern, normally their industrializing process is incomplete or will fail. Consequences will be several. Number one, the country either could not start industrialization, just like many African countries. They all rush to build heavy industries, and turns out these industries could not be supported by big enough market. And their goods are not competitive in the international market, and they bear huge public debt or financial burdens. Or like Latin American countries, because they have rich natural endowment, but even in this case, their heavy industrial goods would not be competitive in the international market, would have no big enough domestic market to support these heavy industrial goods. Because in order for those heavy industrial goods to be profitable, it has to be mass produced. And because the fixed investment is so high, the market size has to be so large, much larger than light industrial goods. They did not have such a deep and large enough domestic market, and they rush into heavy industrialization. Then therefore they run into deficit problems, financial problems. So basically the reason China so far has been very successful in terms of industrialization is that China has followed the right path of industrialization. So China started its industrialization after reform by developing the so-called township village enterprises. And of course, in order to kickstart this so-called proto-industrialization, you still need some basic state capacity, which was built before the reform era. So that's after the establishment of the People's Republic of China. Because even with the proto-industrialization, you still need a sort of a unified market, domestic market, to allow the goods produced by small firms to be able to reach nationwide. So you need some basic infrastructure to reduce a lot of so-called market transactions across different regions in the same country. So therefore you need the proto-industrialization to prepare that process and ferment the market. So China spent the first 10 years to finish proto-industrialization and kick-started the first industrial revolution, which is mass production of textile and other light consumer goods. And that process automatically built the market, which is large and deep enough to support heavy industrialization. Because in order to transport goods, you need a very advanced highway system, railroad system. But a highway system and railroad system cannot be built in the early 80s because China did not have the fund or the national saving necessary to support that infrastructure, also did not have the demand. So therefore, you have to wait until China finish the proto-industrialization and the first industrial revolution. Then you can kickstart the second industrial revolution, which is to mass produce all the heavy industrial goods, including machineries. And that's why China now is the workshop of the world, not just in terms of light consumer goods, but also in terms of machineries. And therefore, this level of capacity enables China to start modernization of all the agricultural sector. So this is the first key. China has followed the right industrial path by relying on correct industrial policy. And the second important key is that it is precisely based on this manufacturing base, China is able to move to the frontier of innovation. Because the knowledge of technology innovation does not come from university, come from the firms, come from the manufacturing sector, learning by doing. And only based on manufacturing in the government or the state has the resources and has a demand for fundamental science research and therefore have money to build universities. The same happened in Europe, the same happened in the United States. In the entire 19th century in the US was busy with catching up Europe by building their manufacturing capacity. There was not many good universities at that time. So only after the US became the center or the powerhouse of manufacturing, then the US started to build very good universities to have money to support basic research and have money to hire scholars from around the world. Now this process is happening in China. So therefore, if you follow the right path of industrialization, and if you understand the basic logic, there's no reason to be pessimistic about China's ability to innovate in the future, even including basic science. And the third aspect for China's success is a stable political environment for people to conduct a business and to produce goods. Therefore, you need a centralized political power to be able to not only maintain social order, but also to provide public goods, to build a law-abiding system. In Europe, the so-called rule of law was built in the process of industrialization in order to protect the fruits of industrialization. In order to do this, you must have a capable government, central government, which has enough state capacity to do this. So therefore, having a stable political environment is very important. And the same applies to any European countries in the history. So European countries became industrialized in the 18th, 19th, or early 20th century was not because of democracy. That's the consequence of industrialization. It was not the precondition for industrialization. And most European countries finished or kickstarted their industrialization process under monarchy system. Okay, so therefore, by prescribing democracy to developing countries as the prerequisite for economic development is totally wrong. It's very misleading.